Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is surprisingly good, and today I'm going to tell you why I think that. One of the big reasons this movie is surprisingly good has got to do with my expectations. But before I talk about that, I have to talk about how I feel about the prequel Planet of the Apes trilogy. Because for me, it's one of the best trilogies ever made. The movies just kept getting better and better, so that War for the Planet of the Apes became one of my favorite movies of all time. The main reason that trilogy was so good was because of the main character, Caesar, and what he goes through in all of those three movies. Anyways, when I saw that a new Planet of the Apes movie was announced, I wasn't very happy because we got such a great end to this franchise in War for the Planet of the Apes, and when I saw that Wes Ball, who made the Maze Runner movies, was directing it, I didn't really expect a good movie because even though I liked the Maze Runner movies, they definitely weren't without major problems. So my expectations were very low, but I still had some hope that this movie could be good. And then I went to watch it. Now, let's first start off with the positives. The movie is quite slow paced in the first and part of the second act, which some people won't like, but I really enjoyed it because then the movie could really focus on the characters and on the world building. The biggest highlight of this movie definitely is how good the visual effects are. I had some doubts about how well animated the apes would be in this movie when I watched the trailers, but as soon as I watched the movie, all of those doubts disappeared. The visuals are absolutely stunning, and the apes are on par with those from War for the Planet of the Apes. They really looked like real apes. Also, this post-apocalyptic setting we're in is great, and I mean just overall the world building in this movie is great as well. We really get to discover how the apes used the stuff humans built for their own, like some human structures as their homes, for instance. You can really see that Wes Ball and the visual effects team gave a lot of thought into how the apes could use these structures or how the apes would interact with something like a telescope, and I really appreciate that. Rocca, the orangutan on Noah's side, was a very cool character. He was very charismatic, funny, but also tries to live by the rules of Caesar. I also liked the bad guy Proxima Caesar, who used the words like apes together strong, but interprets them differently as Caesar does. He also has a motivation where I thought that does make sense, for the most part at least. The score was great as well, similar to the one in War for the Planet of the Apes, but with enough new elements that it feels fresh. And when there's action, it's also made really well with long takes and some cool visual ideas. Anyways, let's come to the negatives. I wasn't such a fan of the main character Noah. He really just feels like a blueprint protagonist with blueprint character development. It was enough to keep me hooked, but I wasn't emotionally involved with him. Also, even though I did like the first and part of the second act of this movie, the other part of the second act, and especially the last act of this movie, is filled with plot holes and plot convenience and just stuff that doesn't really make any sense. The human called May, whilst being interesting in the first and the second act, does kind of mutate into a plot device in the third act. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie and was surprised by how good it was, but in the third act, the movie kind of falls apart a bit with plot convenience and stuff that just doesn't make sense. Also, the movie is about 15 minutes too long for the story it has to tell, but it's not like you're bored in the movie, so it's not a huge deal. Overall, I'd give this one a 3.5 out of 5. I really liked it, and it has to be seen on the biggest screen you can find. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video.